I battled a Dogman, who turned me into a werewolf. Dear Scary Stories NYC. Decades ago in the early 80s, I received a glimpse of an old film that convinced me to go look for the Dogman in America's Midwest. But after some terrifying experiences in direct conflict with the species, I found out that they are not dogmen at all. They are something far closer to what we humans call werewolves, or possibly skinwalkers, because now I've caught some kind of an infection from them. I find myself transforming into werewolf forms, and I can't stop myself from doing it. I think it's something that they, the master werewolves, can do at will, but when it happens to us humans, it becomes something that we'd call a curse or an illness. To the true dogmen, the true werewolves, this is all just another skill set, another way of seeing the world and interacting with it. To them, being a werewolf or dogman is just another avatar in the game of life. And what we think of as reality is to them just Grand Theft Auto with a bunch of cool cheat codes that they don't let us share. I've always been the kind of a guy to turn my entire life on a dime. And so when I was dragged by a friend to a meeting of some secretive organization back in the 80s, of what looked like real film of werewolf transformations, humans becoming werewolves right in front of the camera, I was intrigued and wanted desperately to know more. The man giving the presentation claimed that the footage of men becoming beasts was from Prague in the earlier part of the 20th century. He said the film had been smuggled out of Europe during the chaotic end of World War II, and that it was very real, even if he couldn't explain exactly where it was shot or what precisely we were looking at. I remember some of the shots looking like they were taken in a laboratory, while others looked to have been taken out in a forest at night. One or two of the shots looked to me like moving images shot inside hell itself, with multiple figures moaning and writhing in pain as they became less men and more beasts. I was wondering if you could try to recreate a new film using your modern techniques that looked something like what I've just described. If you can do that, please run that footage now. I mean, stop reading this, run your artist's recreation of the old Lost Prague film, and then resume the narration. We were all left stunned and silent when the film was finished being presented. Of course, I pursued getting myself a copy, corresponding with that man by mail for years, until I eventually stopped getting answers from him. I never saw the film a second time, and I never had a chance to study it. If he didn't want it being scrutinized, maybe he had a good reason. Maybe it wasn't as real as it looked. But to me it looked like short snippets of genuine werewolf transformations, and it definitely deserved to be studied, even if it had turned out to be a hoax. I still hold out some small hope that it might still exist, and may show up someday. Maybe one of you out there has even seen this old film. Maybe it's even on YouTube. If so, please direct me to it, so that I can finally see it for a second time. I wonder if it would still look as real to me now, as it did back in the 80s. It certainly looked real to me back then. So much so that I used up a week of vacation time that year, camping in the Porcupine Mountains. That's the area in Wisconsin that I was directed to, by the guy who gave that presentation on that night. He told me that I didn't need to go to Prague, and that there were werewolves living wild and free in the mountains of the Midwest. He also told me that they did not pass on the werewolf curse, and were therefore safer to study. I don't believe that he lied to me about that, but I do believe that he was misinformed. On that first vacation in the winter, I got some good skiing in, and had a blast with the woman I was then dating. The two of us also got a clear view of a dogman walking through the snow. At first I thought it was a Bigfoot, but she pointed out its pointed ears and its black nose. She was right. We were seeing a Midwestern dogman or a Wisconsin werewolf. It was not ape-like, even though it stood on its hind legs. It was some kind of a canine, and it was as big as a bear or larger. It appeared to be faster than a bear too, at least when walking upright, and we were quite happy that the creature didn't seem to notice us as it lumbered by in the distance. Well, I was hooked. I have since camped all over Wisconsin and parts of Michigan and Minnesota as well. I spent some years in the early 2000s, living partially off the grid for months at a time, while searching for these creatures, or people who knew about them or their whereabouts and activities. In that time I heard any number of theories as to what these creatures really are, and I was not surprised to find that a lot of the witness reports I received were not like animal sighting reports at all, but clearly encounters with intelligent beings. I heard 2 different reports from 2 people who didn't know each other, who claimed that they saw the creatures look up at them, and then either become invisible, or blink out of existence. This one man felt it's possible that when the creature saw he had been discovered, that he ran away, so incredibly super fast, that it looked to the naked eye as if he had simply blinked out of existence. That person felt that what he was seeing was the result of super science, not magic or mysticism. I think it was Isaac Asimov who pointed out that if science is sufficiently advanced enough, from whatever our current level of understanding is, then it would appear to be magic, at least until your own level of mathematical or scientific understanding caught up with that of these other entities, whatever they are. And so I sort of forgot about that original film showing werewolf transformations, which had sparked my lifelong searching for Dogman, and I adopted a new worldview that I was looking for and at a species of wild dog-headed animals, which somehow traced their lineage back to the original skinwalkers or whatever you want to call them, who started the species. For years, I walked through forests dominated by the Dogman, and I feared for my life, but I forgot to also fear for my soul. On the day when I eventually got bitten by one of these beasts, I had been following large tracks through the snow. They looked to me like large wolf tracks, but they seemed to be walking upright. And then the tracks seemed to be those of a human walking barefoot in snow. I couldn't figure out where the wolf had gone. His footprints just stopped, and the human footprints carried on from there. It baffled me that day, but I now understand that it was a skinwalker, or a master werewolf, whatever you want to call that species that pre-existed us on this planet. And you see, there was no sign of struggle in that snow. He was a werewolf, and then he was a man. There was no interruption in the trackway. He did not stop to have his bones elongate. His snout did not grow out painfully. His clothing didn't tear up as his body grew larger. He just instantaneously changed his avatar from the Wolfman one to the human one. It's as simple as that if you are an advanced being. You're not limited to merely one form if you're that advanced. But apply that advanced future technology to us three-dimensional humans living in space-time, and we scream in agony as our bones crack and our cartilage rearranges itself inside our bodies, as we become whatever the future tech is programmed to have us become. But like a Windows 10 program running on a Windows 7 machine, you're gonna sometimes have some extremely limited functionality of the tech, and things are gonna go wrong, more often than they go right. One day I found my path on the hiking trail blocked by a form too large to be human, or even a bear. I looked up and saw it was the largest of the Dogman, a muscle-bound figure 13 or 14 feet up in the air. I adopted a submissive posture, but he didn't care, and he stormed toward me, shaking the ground and creating big clouds of dust as he moved. I turned and bolted out of there, trying to cut under low branches and go places that the Dogman wouldn't be able to fit its immense form. The Dogman didn't care, though. He just broke thick branches off and moved them out of his way. He caught up to me several times, only for me to squeeze my sweaty, panicked form out of his grip and keep running. I started to become so exhausted that it stopped mattering as much to me if I survived, and I fell into a depressed heap on the forest floor, panting for air. The monster Dogman picked me up and threw me into a tree to make sure to beat all the remaining strength out of me. Then he proceeded to pick me up like I was a rag doll, and he bit my neck like he was playing a vampire in an old horror movie. I figured he was about to end my life, but after drinking up some of my blood, he dropped me to the ground like a mic drop, and he wandered off to leave me to bleed out. Only I didn't. I mean, well, actually I guess I did bleed out, but somehow I didn't die from it. I recovered without any medical treatment, and I got up and went home and resumed my life like nothing had happened. And that was what it felt like for some time. It was more than just weeks. It was months before I started to feel the changes. Yes, I am now a werewolf, so that means I was bitten by a werewolf and not a dogman. Are there actually any such things as dogman? I don't know. And I don't know how we can find out either. I have developed my own theory about that, so remind me to double back around to my theory before I'm done here, okay? So I had been trailing the beast that eventually drank my blood. I had been stalking him. I had been watching him through binoculars from what I thought was a safe distance. When you see them on the other side of a valley, they look the same as any other living creature. I mean, they aren't flying around on magic carpets or anything. They're big, furry, smelly things walking around in the woods. They don't look like advanced beings from another kind of reality, but it's been my experience that at least some of them are. Others of them are just poor losers like me, who pissed off one of the real werewolves or skinwalkers or whatever else you like to call them. So this dogman I was stupidly stalking, I had thought he was a white furred dogman like a polar bear dogman. When he was fighting with me and later attacking though, I saw that he was actually darker colored, but just sort of covered in snow it looked like. It's possible that he was just very wet and hot and sweaty, and that ice was forming on his fur and causing him to look white-furred. It might have been a sort of a natural camouflage to be able to look light-colored in snowy weather, but dark during the summer months, when he probably operated nocturnally. So I wonder if the white dogman and Bigfoot that people sometimes report might just be the same darker cryptids, but how they look in freezing weather. Maybe nature allows them to sweat in such a way that their fur appears to turn white until the snow thaws. Do any other animals do this? If not, could this actually be technology being used by the creatures to alter their appearance and give them the cover of camouflage in the winter? Because I do now believe that some dogmen are incredibly advanced beings. Not all of them. Okay, now we're getting into my theories. So my theory, and I don't know if this is a radical notion or if other people have already figured this out, but my theory is that there are multiple kinds of werewolves. There are the kind that bit me, and there is this kind that I am. I don't think the creature that bit me was ever human. I think that is what native people might refer to as a skinwalker, or what they might just try to never talk about. I spent years trying to get the attention of something that the native people are wise enough to try to never mention. What I did was suicidal, and this is why I have the affliction I currently have. To the true werewolves, this is about power. But to us humans forced to be werewolves, it's about degradation. This also seems to tie in with the legends of vampires as well. I think that werewolves and vampires and skinwalkers are all either the same thing, or at least similar enough to each other, that to us humans, they may as well be the same thing. I think that on top of that food chain there are the original non-human werewolves, the skinwalkers, the shapeshifters, the nature gods. Giorgio Tsoukalos would probably call them aliens, but it seems to me they've been on Earth longer than we humans have, so they aren't really alien to this planet at all, are they? I think in the middle of the werewolf pack are the tormented souls like myself, who have been cursed to transform into animals and have no control over our behavior until we revert back. And then, I think there are also pitiful souls even more cursed than people like me. I think some werewolves might be transformed up from animals, perhaps. Or maybe they are the real-life equivalent of non-player characters. Maybe some of these monsters I've seen out there in the woods really don't possess any real kind of soul at all. Maybe they are the biological equivalents of robots, being programmed to perform certain functions, and only disguised as a living thing, for some reason that only its creator or inventor could explain. Are there real dogmen? I mean, is there a species out there living natural lives that look like werewolves? I am not all-knowing and all-seeing, so I can't say it's impossible. I might have seen some of them with my own eyes. But in all my years and in all my travels, I have come around to feeling in my gut that they're all, every upright walking canine reported by anyone, whether here in England or South America or anywhere else, some form of avatar, either chosen by or inflicted upon the wearer. Does that make sense? It's a blessing if you're an advanced enough species to drive the werewolf avatar and control what it does. It's a curse if you're a more primitive kind of consciousness like a human being, and you quickly become overwhelmed by that avatar. Then the werewolf avatar controls you. The identity controls the living soul. It's a corruption of God's intention, and it's an abomination on the world. This is what is meant when things like vampires and werewolves are called soulless. It means they are avatars. They are not real living beings like you and me. Allowing them to control us is allowing the car to control the driver. It's an offense to creation itself, and it inevitably will lead to a bad end. All the things that had always been couched in religious terms about good and evil have become hardcore literal facts of life for me. I hear myself ranting sometimes and I can start to sound like a religious zealot. But I belong to no church, no synagogue, and no mosque. I have no religious beliefs at all. But I now understand the difference between good and evil. And I now understand what it means to be cursed. People sometimes ask me, if I'm a werewolf, where are the pictures of me transforming? Seems like a good question, doesn't it? Well, I can't honestly tell you why. But whenever I make plans to try to get pictures or video, something goes wrong. One friend of mine got injured trying to photograph me. She was so unnerved by the incident that she moved and left no forwarding address to me. Another friend said the werewolf destroyed his expensive phone when he tried to shoot video of me. I have no memory of any of this, but I had to buy him a new phone. So yes, I would like to have some proof to show you, but I would like to have proof to show myself as well. So get in line, and I promise I'll share any news I get. But I don't honestly expect to get any news, that is. I expect this curse to either last until I'm dead and buried, or to in fact be the main agent that results in my demise. I am not expecting any happy ending, and I don't see you having a happy ending either if you try to look too deeply into these entities. Because there is something more evil than a dogman. It's the skinwalker werewolf, who drank his blood, and cursed him to be a dogman in the first place. Real Wolfmen, True Encounters in Modern America. A lot of the stories we run on this channel are supposed to be true, but it's not like I have budget or time to look into any of the claims made. Someone who made her living looking into Dogman claims, though, was the late great Linda Godfrey. If you like the stories on this show, then you should check out this incredible audiobook from Linda called Real Wolfmen, True Encounters in Modern America. Linda goes back to the 1930s and tells a number of the better researched Dogman and werewolf stories of the 20th and 21st centuries. It's a great overview of the subject matter, whether you're new to it or even if you think you know all the stories. It's available in audiobook, audio CD, paperback, or Kindle forms at the address in the description for this video. The audiobook is over 8 hours and is probably the best deal there. Plus, if you use the link in the description, supposedly you're helping us out here in some way that I'm still learning about. And now here's your old pal Bigfoot with an important message about today's executive producer. If you want an EP that ain't some straggler, then the one you want is Linda Hagler. Please join me in thanking today's executive producer for making this episode possible. Linda is a member of our PayPal subscribers club, which means she gets to see all our weekly Sunday secret uncensored episodes. And you can too, if you follow the instructions set down by our international TV spokesmongrel, Henry Lee Dogman. Hank. Thanks, Biggie. And thanks to all of you for watching this far. If you liked it, please click like. If you'd like to see more of our work, please subscribe. And also click that bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we put out a new episode. To become an executive producer, you can donate to us through the thanks button under each of our videos or through our paypal.me/PeterBernard209 page. To receive cool perks like secret uncensored Dogman episodes far too wild to ever run on this channel, you can become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button, or join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. Joining either at the $3 a month level or above gets you access to our over 25 hours of secret uncensored Dogman stories available nowhere else. Do you have a scary story about Dogman or some other kind of high strangeness that happened to you? Let us know by emailing us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or by leaving us a voicemail message at 804-LA-SCARY. You may need to call back on that one. It cuts off after, I think, 3 minutes. And if you don't want to do any of that stuff, thank you for simply watching to the end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.